Hi, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have even turned the camera on yet. Give me a minute to compose myself and I'll meet you over at the board. Come on, let's do it.
Come on, let's do it.
Okay, I'm much better now. Apologize for that. I cut up this whole onion trying to get all this stuff ready. Today, it's Thursday, and it's about 1:18. I'm home from work today. I'm not sick, but something's been going around the office, and I don't want it. I have a client meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m., and I'm signed up for an all-day beekeeping class Saturday. Today's Thursday. So I decided to stay home. Unpaid today. I have no more personal time left till New Year. But I cannot get what's been flying around the office. Not this weekend. Today we're going to make my old pal, who, while formerly from Louisville, Kentucky, now just moved into a beautiful new home on the water in Maryland. This guy turned me on to my very first TM. And I don't mean transcendental meditation. Or was it Van Sant in Rex Beach? I don't know. Memory is a fickle thing. But he sent me this recipe. He does it a lot. It's his Jewish onion rye bread. I don't do a lot of breads on this show, but I've been wanting to make this for a long time, and he sent me the recipe, so I'm following it to the T, okay? However, I am cutting it in half. It's a 2-loaf recipe. I don't need 2 loaves of bread around any week of my life, even though I freeze them. I cut the thing exactly in half. So let me tell you what we have. I don't even remember the measurements, but it's cut in half. Bread flour. Now I only had about half of what you need of my King Arthur bread, but I have a beautiful high protein organic wheat flour. So I used some of that. Also an organic rye flour. Said onion, chopped very fine. Milk, but I have oat milk. The only dairy I have in the house is half and half, but a friend was moving from Red Hook to Brooklyn and emptied her fridge out and gave me all kinds of produce and everything, and a big unopened half gallon of oat milk. So I'm going to substitute that. Salt, sugar, of course my active dry yeast. This is fast rise action. And then some oil. The recipe didn't specify. I'm using my light olive oil. It works for just about anything. Very, very almost flavorless. But it's not one of these, seed oils per se. So that's it. I'm going to have to look at the recipe, but let's get moving. Okay, I forgot 2 items. We're going to need some lukewarm water to dissolve our yeast into, and we are going to need some caraway seed. Now, I suppose this is optional, but not for me. It's not a rye bread for me without caraway. The first thing we're going to do is scald the milk. So I've got a saucepan on here, and we want to get this to just about 180, but we don't want to burn it. So we're going to keep a real close eye on it. Got the old gun here, so we'll keep an eye on that as it gets between 160 and 180. We don't want to burn it. Now remember, this is not dairy. This is oat milk. So it may behave a little differently, but I'm still going to go to 180. Because that's what it says. We're already at 160. Scalding the milk, aka oat milk. Okay, that's 180. So let's put in our salt. I'm going to turn the heat down. Sugar. And our oil. Let me get my spatula. I eyeball things when I cook. I measure carefully when I bake. So I want to get every drop of this oil that was weighed out in. Okay, so we just want the sugar and salt to dissolve. Now we added that stuff. Let's check the temp just for funsies. That stuff dropped at 174. We're still good. This is basically what you would call scalded milk. Between 160 and 180. We want this dissolved. A whisk works nicely for this too, to get everything dissolved quickly. Okay, I'm going to turn the heat off. And now, according to the instructions, put this in a bowl. And I'm going to use the old KitchenAid bowl. The recipe has you kneading this, but I have, as Play said in the great Kid and Play movie, Class Act, I got things to see and people to do. So I'm going to rely on the KitchenAid for our kneading of this bread. Always seems to do a good job. All right, that's just going to cool. Let's head back over to the board. All right, our milk with the sugar, salt, oil has cooled down. I've got some lukewarm water here. It's about 108 degrees. Less important with this yeast because it's instant rise, but the warm water is nice. It'll bloom out a little anyway. So let's just kind of dissolve that. And we're going to put this right into our milk mixture. And we're going to add the white flour. And remember, this was white bread plus my high protein wheat flour. The main thing with the white bread flour is it's higher protein than like an all-purpose. So I think this wheat will be just fine and actually should be delicious mixed with the rye. I just want to get all of this yeast in here with the water. Okay, let's mix this up. Got the Danish hook. I'll just start mixing this into a dough. Okay, now we're going to add our onion. Caraway seed. I'll go with about a tablespoon. I know I'm not really doing amounts here for you. The reason being, if I was fair, I would have told you guys all the amounts, but I'm shooting on the iPhone, and that's where I have the recipe in my notes. It was texted to me. And now, let's put 100 grams of the, again, this is, I'm reading from what I was sent, and everything is cut in half. It would have been 200, but I'm going to go with 100 grams of the rye flour, which should be, I think I put about 125. Oops, I'm over already. It's the type of thing where we're going to see how stiff the dough is as we add more rye flour. Okay, 106, that should be fine. So let's just get that slightly mixed. And then the recipe I got says to out on a board and knead. And to me that translates to let the machine do the work. I'm all for hand kneading. I love hand kneading. Today is not the day for me to use the counters for that. There's too much going on in this house. Okay, got most of it in here. Let's get it on. And I'll give it a good knead until we get a stiff dough. As always, I start on number 2. It's a nice gentle knead. Then we have the rest of the flour here, the rye, that we can add in small increments if needed. And this is a visual thing. Again, the more breads you make, the more different kind of breads you make, the more comfortable you'll get with how the dough looks, feels, even smells. That aroma of yeast, you can tell when things are starting to rise. All right, I'm going to turn the camera off and we'll turn it on when we have the dough. Okay, and apparently I spoke a little too soon. It's been a long time since I made a rye bread, and the hook, the dough's a little too crumbly for the hook to grab everything. So I think it is a job for, which I always say, the best tools in the kitchen, right? So this is going to be a job for the fingers to get all that rye flour incorporated. It just started crumbling It started to form a dough, but a bunch of the rye flour, as you can see, was crumbling at the bottom of the bowl. So, nothing like a good hand knead, all right? I will take care of this, and as I said before, we'll reconvene when we have a dough. I want to get all the flour incorporated with the liquids. All right, good 5-10 minutes. Got a nice stiff dough. I did wind up using the rest of the rye flour, incorporated nicely. It's stiff, but it's moist. It smells incredible with the onion, caraway, the three different flours at this point. This is going to be beautiful. Thank you, Mr. Maryland. All right. Normally I would use my, proofing bin, but I like to keep the washing of implements down here. So why not go straight in here? The recipe says a bowl, an oiled bowl. And this way, I already rolled this in here to get a little bit of the flour off the sides, but I'll oil it. We'll just do our rise right in here, so there's only one wash at the end. So let's take our dough, get a little oil on the outside. See, it's already picking up more off the bowl as I roll it around. It's cleaning the bowl for me and incorporating that right back into itself. So, a nice ball of dough. We're going to put it in here. I'm going to cover this with a damp towel. I'll put it in the oven with the light on for 2 hours for the first rise. So get a good look at it now. And we'll take a look after the first rise, 2 hours. See you in a bit. Okay, 2 hours is up. We got a nice rise going. So now we're just going to punch it down and give it another 2 hours. Just going to push some of the air out of it. Now this is a much different dough, I'm noticing, than say a sourdough or even the sandwich bread. Let me give it a little sniff. Oh, the caraway. I thought that was a bug for a second. I forgot I put caraway seeds in there. They look like little worms. All right. Punch it down. Back in. I'm going to set the timer. Oh, it's a really nice moist dough. This is going to be a nice loaf, I can tell. All right, back on with the damp towel inside the oven. I'll see you in 2 more hours. This is going to be an evening bake. And then I'll might have to make some tuna fish for Friday lunch. See you in 2 hours. 6:30. So that's 2 hours. That means we had a total rise of 4 hours. And it's going to wind up in this loaf pan. But before we do that, we got a nice rise. It pretty much doubled up. So I'm going to use this loaf pan oiled, but the first thing we're going to do is just form this into a loaf. And we're going to let it rest here for about 10 minutes. And while it's resting, we can get our loaf pan prepped up. So I'm kind of mimicking the pan, right? Because it will rise more. It smells unbelievable. The onions. Touch eggs. All right. So I'm going to put my damp towel over this. Let that rest for about 10. And let's get some oil into our little loaf pan. This was from my grandmother, by the way. It had a beautiful glass top that I broke, which is completely in character. But I use it for my white sandwich bread. It's got a great shape. You can make a meatloaf in here. Look at the beveled sides. You see that? Makes a great meatloaf. All right, now got some cornmeal here. Let's give it a little dusting. Just a very light dusting. I think that should do. All right, that's going to soak into the oil, so maybe I'll put a few more grains after the 10 minutes is up. I'll see you in 10. It's been at least 15 minutes, so this had a nice rest. I already see it's a little plumper than it was. And this is my prepared loaf pan, but I'm just going to sprinkle a couple of dry flecks because most of that already absorbed to the oil. So let's just take our loaf, get her in there, back to this damp towel. Actually, you could use a little dampening. Okay, a little spritz. Let's cover this. It's going back in the oven with the light on, and for 1 hour. And in about a half hour, actually, you know what? Maybe I'll leave it right here because the recipe did say preheat to 500 for an hour. You want that real hot cavity, and I do have a stone in there. Maybe I'll take the stone out and we'll put the glass right on the rack. So 500 for 1 hour, and then we're going to let this rest. And we'll be baking next time I see y'all. All right, we're at 500 degrees, and it's been an hour. We got a really nice rise on this loaf. It smells great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it 3 slashes. Let a little air out. And let's get her in the oven. And we're going to reduce this. Again, I'm reading this right off the recipe. We're going to reduce now. We cranked it to 5, but we're going to reduce to 450. Put her in. And then this is saying splash. I have my water bottle. And within the first 5 minutes, we're going to splash that. So I'm going to put the timer on. 25. It says 20 to 30 minutes at 450. But if I go 25, I can watch this, and within the first 5 minutes, maybe in 2 minutes, I'll spray again. Another 2 minutes, I'll spray again. And that'll be 20. And we'll keep an eye on it. So I'll see you all in 24 and change. I'll do the spray off camera. Okay, we hit 20. The timer went off. I gave it a tap and I left it another maybe 5. Got some nice color on top. I think we're good to go. I can hear it, I can see it, I can feel it, I can smell it. So let's get this out. I can't even describe the aroma in here. Touchies! It's it's oniony, it's rye-y. I'm gonna set this up here on the stove. It's hot, 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 while I get a cooling rack out over on the board, and I will see you there. Okay, there was no fighting. I turned that loaf pan over there by the stove, and she slid right out. That's where that light olive oil and cornmeal comes in handy. Look, I can hear it. Nice and hollow on the inside. Now, the trick with baking any bread, I don't care what bread it is leaving it alone to cool. The immediate thing is, oh, I want that hot slice of bread. No, it's no different than a steak. That is still baking. There's activity going on inside this loaf of bread. There's steam moving around in all the air pockets and crevices. I am not going to cut this until the morning. Full disclosure, I already did quality control last night. After it cooled, there was no way I was waiting to taste this bread. Have it in this bag. Incredible. Touchy. The onions, the caraway, the rye flour, it's amazing. So I usually don't eat in the morning. I'm bringing some steel cut oats to work, but I'm going to cut a very thin slice and toast it like I did last night. Put a little smear of cream cheese, and let's see how it is. Okay, I'm just going to do a very thin slice, And actually I'm cutting it a little uneven because I want flat slices for lunch. I opened a little can of tuna fish, and I had a garden potato on the counter. So I baked up some chips in the Breville this morning. Tuna on rye with a little slice of tomato, avocado, maybe some iceberg. Now, there's no toaster at work, so I won't be able to do that. And you know what? The loaf's kind of small. I'm going to bring 2 sandwiches just in case, because it's Friday. All right, I'll package those up. I'll pop this in the toaster oven. I'll get my tuna ready while it toasts. I'll see you in a minute. All right, here's our little slice. Toast it up. I have a little bit of cream cheese here. But since we're tasting it for sort of a quality control, I also have some nice Kerrygold unsalted Irish butter. So let's put a little of that on the other side. All right, butter first. Oh, this is a great bread. Cream cheese side, toast it up. This goes in my regular rotation. Whole wheat sourdough, King Arthur sandwich, 4-hour baguettes, ciabatta, onion rye. Thank you to my buddy in Maryland, formerly Kentucky, and the rest of you. We'll see you all for the next episode.
Come on, let's do it.
Bake your own bread.